We have a tragic story coming out of the Texas Hill County near San Antonio over the July 4th weekend. You guys can see some of the footage rolling now. But there was a historic flood in Texas that, at the time of this recording, has claimed at least 90 lives, with that number likely to increase based on the missing people they are still trying to locate. And one of the real tragedies to this story is there was a girls' camp called Camp Mystic right along the river here. And because of its location and this flooding, many little girls and camp counselors who of course were there assisting with the camp lost their lives. And I'm not going to play this for you guys now. You can search it if you want, but there was also it was one of the more difficult videos I've watched, but a heartbreaking video. And it was a father who was just throwing around, wreckage, beds, clothes, just different things, trying to find his missing daughter because he couldn't locate her. It was just absolutely one of the more difficult things to see. And I cannot possibly imagine what families are going through right now with that. Now, ultimately, guys, what happened from what I read is there is a combination of factors leading to this severe event. There were stalled thunderstorms, tropical moisture, and there was rapid rainfall. That was actually higher than what was forecasted. We'll get to that in a second. That caused the water level to rise in just minutes, and then the overflow and the flooding began. Now, I do want to mention a positive in this, terrible, terrible, tragic story. But the rescue efforts and those involved in that do deserve some praise and acknowledgement. There were different units and groups from all over the country. I saw that help was sent from Virginia, for instance. I also saw Florida helping out. The U.S. Coast Guard obviously stepped in as well. And we also received some international help from Mexico via volunteer fire crews who they sent up from the border. But ultimately, guys, this event, as tragic as it is, brought up some valid questions because when things like this happen, for me, the goal or one of the goals should be to figure out why it happened, right? So this never has to happen again. Or if a flooding does happen like this again, at least we're more prepared and no one necessarily, hopefully no one has to lose their lives. So see, these were some of the questions that kind of came up. First thing I mentioned, the forecast was wrong. So how was the forecast so wrong? Because it underestimated the amount of rain by about half. So that was pretty dramatically off. Other questions, did enough warnings go out and in the correct way and with enough time to act? So just kind of the messaging and the communication infrastructure within Texas, was that kind of up to par? And then just the bigger question overall, kind of that for me, I'm the most curious about, is future preparedness for natural disasters. So like how, once again, do we make sure something like this does not happen again? So in response to this, Texas officials basically directed the blame at the National Weather Service. But guys, this is where consequences have actions. The National Weather Service was a target of Doge, and gutting it was part of Project 2025. So defunding things like the National Weather Service, NOAA, FEMA to help respond, because they're using FEMA now to help respond to this, but then they're also distorting FEMA money to pay for things like detention centers, and they're phasing out FEMA heading forward. But guys, once again, cutting funding has consequences. I want to be clear though. Did these cuts directly impact this event, this flooding? It is hard to say. It's not yes or no as of this time. There's still more information coming out, and I imagine we will get more clarity in the coming days and weeks. but ultimately it's a dire reminder and a unfortunate reminder. Unfortunate isn't even a grave enough word to explain this tragedy, but it's just a reminder of how important some of these programs are, guys. Just because certain individuals don't want to fund them because they don't like them does not mean they're not critical to society and literally, in this case, our survival. So I kind of prove the point of the importance of funding these programs and just funding science. I'm going to play a clip from months ago. So this is not recent. This is from a while ago, which now seems like an omen that we should have taken more seriously.
As you've grown accustomed to my presentations over my 34 years in South Florida newscasts, confidently, I went on TV and I told you it's going to turn. You don't need to worry. It is going to turn. And I am here to tell you that I am not sure I can do that this year because of the gutting, the sledgehammer attack on science in general, and I could talk about that for a long, long time, and how that is affecting the U.S. Leadership in science over many years, and how we're losing that leadership, and this is a multi-generational impact on science in this country, all right? But specifically, let's talk about the federal government cuts to the National Weather Service and to NOAA. Did you know that Central and South Florida National Weather Service offices are currently basically 20 to 40% understaffed? From Tampa to Key West, including the Miami office, 20 to 40% understaffed. Now, this type of staffing shortage is having impacts across the nation because there's been a nearly 20% reduction in weather balloon launches that carry those radio sondes.
So guys, just hearing that back is pretty haunting now, knowing what happened over the weekend. But it seems like experts, or at least this individual here from Florida, was trying to ring alarm bells well before any tragedy actually took place. So was this caused by the cutting of funding, the the vacancies, right? There are positions that were not filled. We will see. But will cutting funding like this lead to a higher probability of stuff like this happening? According to the experts, for sure, without a doubt. And guys, that's logical. If you cut funding to things, whether it's schools, whether it's healthcare, it makes it harder for those businesses, those industries, those sectors to function. Other notes I wanted to just point out from this event and kind of the response. The continuing dividing of this country is incredibly disturbing. And it is so, I don't know how we're going to get back from this. So what I mean by this with this situation, because you're probably like, what are you talking about, right? The difference in the tone that Donald Trump and his administration took towards red states struggling, right? So here, there was no attack on Texas leadership from Donald Trump. The support was given with FEMA, things like that. Versus when, for instance, the California wildfires happened and Trump instead was blaming Newsom, forest management, and said they needed to get their act together to lose, or they would lose federal funding. So I don't know how this individual, who said in his inauguration speech he wanted to unite the country over leadership, while he's in leadership, plans to do so when he is this clearly divisive based on who votes for him and who doesn't. The fact that it's loyalty over just being a good leader. And in my opinion, guys, I hope this isn't controversial. When a natural disaster hits, I don't care if it's a tornado is more likely to hit Oklahoma, a hurricane in Florida, a wildfire in California. Give the funding to the states so that they can help get their state back on track, and so that they can take care of the people who have lost their homes, or in worse cases, things like this, family members, and loved ones. That should not be a politicized thing, and you should not react one way to one state who voted for you in a different way to another state, particularly when people are losing their lives, their homes, and just their entire life trajectories are changed from these natural disasters. So I just hate that fracturing and that politicizing of natural disaster relief. Now, very last thing here, guys, we have to have robust climate change policy. I covered this, guys, with a friend, Audrey, actually on Sunday's episode. She works in sustainability and is really passionate about, climate, and the future generations of this country. So please check out that conversation if you have not done so. But please do not let people go on TV and lie to you about what we are observing with our own eyes. We are having once in a lifetime disasters not be so once in a lifetime anymore, right? They are happening with far more consistency. Once in a lifetime disasters now seem to be once in a decade disasters, or once every 5 years or 20 years. But they're no longer happening with the rarity they used to. And unfortunately, instead of funding the programs like FEMA, NOAA, the National Weather Service, scientific research at large from the federal level, we have representatives instead like Marjorie Taylor Greene posting things like this tweet where she is concerned about injection, release. I don't know what she is talking about. Rather than just working on a bipartisan bill to fund the programs that would help warn about climate disaster and respond effectively to them, while also she should also be investing in legislation that would robustly address climate change policy. But I want to finish ultimately, guys, with just all of the thoughts being with the families in Texas, anyone who lost anybody, and just, I don't know. I hope the relief efforts continue to be there, and anyone who's affected by this gets the utmost support they need, because I cannot imagine the tragedy and what they are dealing with right now. Thank you for watching and being part of a growing progressive community. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And if you have the time, check out some of my other episodes you can see around me. Thank you.